Let's bring KC Joyner into the conversation and get his opinion on that as well. You know, the Eagles' offense, KC, has struggled the last couple of weeks. 14 points against the Bengals, 13 against the Packers, 15 against the Seahawks. Is this the perfect defense for what ails the Eagle offense?
Yeah, it should be. Washington's been not that good against the run. In fact, they've been terrible against the run, and they still have coverage weaknesses in their secondary. I think the key to whether or not the Eagles can take full advantage, though, is how aggressive do they want to be, because sometimes they play a lot things close to the vest, and I think that's going to be a key factor, is whether or not they want to really get after these guys.
Yeah, you know, the last time they played, the pass rush was unbearable. I mean, Carson Wentz was running for his life. He was getting hit all over the place. A lot of that was Vitae in his first game. He's not in this game anymore, and you wonder if the Redskins can get a pass rush this time around against the Eagles, because as you've chronicled over the last couple of weeks, the Eagles' offensive line has been pretty good, and Vitae, even when he was playing, settled into that position.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're throwing a lot of shorter passes. They're trying to do things to control the line of scrimmage. The Eagles are trying to put themselves in a situation to not make those negative plays. And not only that, this is surprising. The Eagles rank third in the NFL in time of possession. So I mean, they're doing it. They're not putting a lot of pressure on their defense, and they're able to, at least, even if they're not really dominant on offense, to at least be able to control the pace of a game a lot. So I think that's one of their things they want to really hold control, is to make sure that this thing doesn't get out of hand, and make sure that they put Washington into situations where Washington can get ahead. Because if Washington gets ahead, then Philadelphia's got to start playing a game plan they're really probably not slated to play.
Ryan Matthews is back. A lot of people seem to like Wendell Smallwood. Those people don't include Doug Peterson in the Eagles' offense, it seems. But how much is getting Matthews back? Should it help kickstart this offense?
It allows them to run a power rushing offense, because the Eagles still rank in the top 10 in my good blocking rate metric that measures how often an offensive line gives its blockers, or gives its ball carriers quality run blocking. It's important because good blocking carries are 5 times as valuable as bad blocking carries, so you really have to do well in that metric, and they've done well in there all season. Matthews is not a back who's going to get you a lot of yards per carry. I think his average is 7.9 yards when he gets good blocking, and the league average is 8.2, so he's about average. But the thing is, you can't run Sproles a bunch of times on the line. He can't be your bell cow. Smallwood's really not that guy either, or at least I think he loses effectiveness if you start to try and give him a lot of carries. So Matthews can be a guy to go out there, take full advantage of the good run blocking, weaken the defense up, and then allow some space for Smallwood and Sproles to be able to do what they do.
How about getting Jordan Matthews back, too? We know even when he plays, they don't have a great set of weapons, but having him back in the offense, how that should help Carson Wentz, because this week, Casey, there's been a big debate about his mechanics and whether or not it's his mechanics or it's just the fact that the wide receiving core has been so bad, kind of a chicken or egg theory here.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that it is partially mechanics. Again, we're talking about a rookie quarterback, and he's used to playing longer seasons. Maybe not used to playing, because in North Dakota had, they played a longer schedule because of the extended playoffs, but he's still not used to playing a 16-game early in their careers. They don't know how to deal as well with that, or how to pace themselves. So I think that's part of it. He probably does have some mechanics issues. But again, you're talking about, you could take this receiving core and you could give it to a lot of different quarterbacks in the league, and they would do better than Wentz is doing, but they're not going to do very well. You can't say, if we run Bryce Treggs and some of these other guys out there and say, okay, we'll go get that to Aaron Rodgers or go get somebody else, that they're not going to see some kind of decline. So yeah, it is a little bit of both for, but that's why they need that running game going, because Washington's run defense is really bad, and if Philadelphia can get that running game going, now you can take they can take advantage of maybe some of the personal advantages that they might be able to, or personal mismatches they might be able to get in the Washington secondary.
All right, let's look at the Washington offense here. This is a team. How different are they with Jordan Reed? What is the difference between a Jordan Reed Washington offense and a non-Jordan Reed Washington offense? Because talking to Kevin Sheehan from 980 ESPN, he indicates that Reed should play.
It does make a difference, but the thing is I did an article for ESPN's Insider section a couple weeks ago. It took a look at Kirk Cousins and how he was actually, you could make a case that he could be a bona fide dark horse MVP candidate. He's not going to win it, but just making the case for, if you wanted to think about, can this guy, and can you justify it? And the reason you could justify it is, over his past couple seasons, Cousins had good vertical pass numbers when he was throwing to Deshaun Jackson, and that's it. He did, if you looked anywhere else, his numbers were nowhere near as good. This year, he has really good numbers. Does Cousins? He's, I think, second in the league in vertical pass total. It could be ours since week 5, And if you look at his production on to all the different receivers, Jackson's about in the middle of like all his top receivers. So in other words, he's able to throw vertical passes to everyone. So as important as Reed is, I think the way Cousins has played this year, even if they don't have Reed out there, he can get the most out of all of his targets. And especially the way Crowder has stepped up too. I think that Cousins has a lot of vertical targets, so the Eagles can't just concentrate on Jackson.
So KC, with Kirk Cousins, how do you see him and that Redskins wide receiving core perform against the Eagles secondary? Because of course the Eagles secondary has been dreadful lately.
Yeah, I'm definitely so. Jalen Mills might be the worst cornerback in the league. Leotis McKelvin has taken a big step back. If I'm Washington, I feel if I'm Washington that I don't think that Philadelphia can get into that kind of a shootout. They just don't have the vertical passing game to get things going. And if I'm Washington, I want to try and get this. I don't want to turn it into necessarily get it into a full shootout, but I want to start putting my foot on the gas early on and say, okay, we can get this big lead because you've got the secondary matchups. I'm Washington. I'm also looking and saying I don't like my matchup against the Philadelphia run defense. Washington's rushing defense has been, or rushing offense, their run block has been average, hasn't been great. And Philadelphia's run defense has been really good. So if I'm Washington, I'm saying I want Cousins to be spreading the ball all over the field and get some kind of lead and see if we can put some pressure on Wentz and then see if we can take some chances and pass rushing to get after Wentz. We might not be able to do it if we got a close game.
How about the Redskins' run game? Because they certainly ran all over the Eagles the last time these two met. Do you think they can run the ball and do that to the Eagles again this time around?
I think they may be tempted to, but the last time they played the Eagles, it was more about the Eagles' rush defense and taking some bad angles, and the Eagles making some mistakes. Because if I remember correctly, the Eagles, they only allowed Washington I think it was a 35% good blocking rate, which is below league average. They did a solid job most of the time in stopping Washington's running game. It's just when they didn't stop them, that Washington was getting big gainers. So Washington's still going to want to run the ball some and make sure they keep Philadelphia honest, but I don't think expecting Philadelphia to make those same mistakes that they haven't made anywhere near as much since that game. I don't think it's a high percentage play for Washington.
How much do you think, KC Joyner, ESPN.com, NFL Insider with us, how much do you think Lane Johnson being out has affected this Eagles team? Because a lot of people point to what went wrong with this season. They point to the Washington game when really the free fall started. I mean, they lost to Detroit the week before Johnson was there, but, after that, after that Lions game, they lose in Washington, and Vaitai, had a hand in that game. Even though Vaitai settled in and wasn't abysmal, how much did losing Johnson really mess with this offense?
I think I'm going to take an overall view on this because I think if you take a look at the Eagles' 2016 season, you see that the minute things start to go south a little bit in any area, they really start to scale things back. It's, okay, our cornerback gets beat in coverage. Hey, we're going to stop blitzing as much. We're really going to stop blitzing as much. Hey, we lose our tackle, and now the pass blocking is hurt for a week. Oh, we better really scale things back. Carson Wentz makes a bad decision. He throws a pass in the coverage. Oh, we better not throw any more vertical passes. Like, they get really conservative whenever something goes bad. So I don't think it was necessarily the personnel loss as much as it was the team's approach to what happened when that personnel loss happened. They overreact, I think the Eagles coaching staff does, to any kind of negative situation, and I think that was a factor. Once they overreacted to that situation, it kind of had a domino effect.
What do you think of the Eagles' pass rush? This game, the last time they played, Philadelphia got some pass rush all early in the season. They were, but really, that has not been a factor. Their pass rush, and of course, it leads to their secondary being exposed, like Pete asked about. But the Bengals game last week, they didn't get a lot of pass rush against Green Bay. He gets the ball out so fast, non-existent. Not a lot against the Seahawks. I mean, they really have not got a consistent pass rush. What are you seeing from that front seven of Philadelphia? More the front four.
Again, I'm going to take a kind of an overall approach there to say when the defensive coordinator comes out and says we don't want to blitz that much because we don't want to put a secondary into that kind of situation, and we're not going to do that kind of blitzing. And even when you see situations, game situations, like I remember the Green Bay game where the blitzing worked and it was working really well, but then when they didn't blitz, it was terrible and they were doing an awful job and they just wouldn't blitz more. I think if you let an offensive coordinator know, an opposing offensive coordinator know, we're just not going to blitz that much, it sure does make it a lot easier to get to keep your pass blocking up. That you're trying to do it at that point just on pure physical skill, and the Eagles have some of that, but they need to be able to mix in some of those blitzes to get the offense to be thinking about where they might be coming from. Because if you just play a base front and you're just not going to do a lot of blitzing and you're letting them know you're not going to do it, well, it makes their job a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and Philly's got a lot of problems with is this one of those cases? We asked this question earlier. This team, if you break down their quarters, 3-1, then 1-3, then 1-3, but all three quarters seem to be a different path. Is this a case of Doug Peterson's done a good job? It's just the personnel has caught up to him. When you look at the 12 games Eagles plays, how do you put your thumb on how they've got to 5-7?
I think you put your thumb on that this team still does not figure out what it wants to be. It doesn't want to be and mind you, I think again part of it's personnel wise. They've got the blocking up front to probably run a power blocking set, but then you lose one of your tackles, and you don't have running backs who are really durable. I mean, you've got Matthews. You don't think you can give him 300 carries. You're not talking. He's not Zeke, or he's not somebody who can take that kind of workload. So, okay, can I run that? And you're like, no, I can't run that. And then it's okay, we can't go vertical because we don't have the passing get threats there. And then, okay, on defense, our cornerbacks are too weak, so we can't really do as much. We can't really blitz and leave them on islands, but they're not good enough to cover either. So a lot of it has to do with not having the personnel. But the thing is, when you've got weaknesses in personnel like this, you kind of have to make a decision, I think, and that we're not just going to play a high percentage approach because you don't have a team that can win in a high percentage approach. If I'm the Eagles over the last 4 games of the season, if I were management, I'd be wanting the coaching staff to go, look, we don't really care. We don't want you to lose 4 games, but what we want you to do more than anything else, we're not going to judge you on wins and losses. We're going to judge you on are you developing your talent and how aggressive are you? Because right now it seems like the Eagles are kind of throwing in the towel of the season and say, hey, we don't think we can play the season through anymore. If I'm the coaching staff, I want to just see you guys play hard for 4 games. We'll be as aggressive as possible. I don't care if we go 0-4, but we're going to go down with guns blazing because this kind of safety-first approach, it's not working, and I think it's tuning the players out.
Casey, what's the bigger problem for the Eagles right now, wide receiver or corner?
Al Davis, I was just reading something that Amy Trask, the former CEO of the Raiders, she was posting something on Twitter saying that Al Davis constantly told her and anybody on the team that you can never have too many good corners. And he said, you never let yourself get short of cornerbacks. You always have to have cornerbacks. And so you can play call a lot of the vertical passing game. You can do a lot of things to play call people open. But as Bill Walsh said, when it comes to defense, personnel is everything. And you can't, if you have a weakness in personnel, an offensive coordinator is going to be able to single it out and take advantage of it. So it is definitely cornerback. If I'm them, I start cornerback. I want to upgrade receiver too, but I'm definitely starting cornerback and making sure that I've got plenty of people back there who are really good before I start going anywhere else.
If you're Howie Roseman, some rumors about Deshaun Jackson. You excited about that move? If you're him, are you talking him to come back to Philly?
The thing is are you looking at it? You can't look at it long term because he's too old to be thinking of a long term deal. But if you're looking for a short term, we need a burst right now. Yeah, because the thing is I wouldn't be opposed to it because think about next year. If you can't find another vertical threat in the draft, if you can find somebody who can stretch the defense immediately, now here you've got your rookie quarterback who I still have all the faith in the world in Wentz. I still think he's going to turn out to be a very good quarterback, but now you've got no vertical threats for him, and you've got another season where he doesn't learn, how to lean on the vertical pass, and he's going to do all this thinking and dunking. I don't want to go through another season like that, and if that's the solution to the problem, I'd definitely consider it.
Give me your thoughts on the Thursday night game. What you learn about Kansas City, Oakland?
I learned that when Derek Carr has a busted finger, he looks like David Carr.
KC Joyner here on the Sports Bash. Let's take a look at some of the key matchups this week. How about Denver, Tennessee? Tennessee hanging around in that South. Denver on the outside looking in.
Marcus Mariota, since week 4, he was last in the league in total QBR after 4 weeks of the season. He's, I believe it's second in the league in total QBR since then. He's playing at an MVP pace. Problem for Tennessee is that they've got an abysmal secondary, and it'll be curious to see if Denver tries to go after that secondary and tries to go vertical. If they get something they can go vertical there, because I think Tennessee is going to be able to put up more points against Denver's defense than is generally thought.
KC Joyner with us. How about Arizona, Miami? Miami last week, I don't know, aberration, or do you think they bounce back, or is this the beginning of a December bottom falling out for them?
I never thought they were quite as good as it looked like they were. This is a really tough. It's a tough call in Arizona because they got to go across the country. It's a road game for them across the country, so that's a difficult thing. But they've got the vertical passing game to challenge Miami. They've got the run defense to shut down Ajayi because Ajayi hasn't done anywhere near as well since those first couple of games, and part of it's Miami's run block and a part of it's him. Although he is getting used more in the passing game, I don't think Miami's offense could keep up if Arizona can get the vertical passing game going. So I think Miami's got a really tough stretch the rest of the season. I'd be surprised to make the playoffs.
All right, KC Joyner here breaking down some of the matchups to watch this weekend. How about the Houston-Indianapolis game? Winner takes first.
Yep, did an analysis for ESPN's Insider section. It was a fantasy football-centric article. I was talking about DeAndre Hopkins and really talking more about Brock Osweiler. And Brock Osweiler has some of the worst vertical pass numbers in the league this year. He had some of the worst vertical pass numbers in the league last year. And if you look at his numbers in college, his last year in college, one big year that he had, when he was under duress, he had some of the worst numbers in college football on vertical passing that year, too. He just can't throw vertical, and I think Indianapolis can throw vertical, especially with the injury to Jonathan Joseph. So I like Indianapolis in that one.
All right, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, they'll play twice within a 3-week span here. Tampa is still in play. In fact, they're in the playoffs right now, but they're still in play in the division.
Yeah, and New Orleans, I believe they're dealing with a suspension in their secondary now. They have been playing a lot better in their secondary, but if they're now missing a body out of that secondary, that's not going to be good for them. And Tampa, the thing about Tampa though is that I still think that Jameis Winston, he's taking too many risks with his passes. He's still forcing too many passes downfield, and I just think this is going to be one of those shootout games. It wouldn't surprise me if New Orleans won the game because anytime it's a shootout, it's a 50-50 proposition, especially when you're dealing with a risky quarterback on one side. KC Joyner breaking down the games that matter and some other interesting ones. Seattle, Green Bay. Green Bay's been playing better. Are they back? Blizzard game it might be. It looks like there might be a ton of snow between Saturday night and Sunday night. Could be the biggest blizzard game they've had in over 30 years. Green Bay is going to be doing a dink-and-dunk passing game, and I don't know that that's what you want to be doing if you've got a blizzard game going. And Seattle's going to have still has a power running game they can lean on. So if it does turn into a blizzard game, I like Seattle a lot more. How
about Dallas and New York on the Sunday nighter? Dallas has one loss, and it was on opening night against the Giants here. Giants, they got to 8-3. We expected them to get to that mark once they had Cleveland and Chicago. They lost last week. Here's another one that they got to figure out a way, Casey, to find 2 wins. Is this the week they get one of those 2?
I think that their chance, I just mentioned shootouts, I think their chance is that because Dallas really hasn't had a team challenge them to a shootout game or be able to get them into a shootout game. And part of it's they've got their defense has been improved, and they might get Claiborne back. But if the Giants can turn it into a shootout game, if you can get Dallas away from being able to lean on that running game, I think could be a big plus for New York. Plus, New York secondary has been very good on vertical passes, so they've got a path to victory. I don't think they'll win, but I think they've got a clear path to victory if they'll be aggressive and decide they want to throw the ball out. How
about the Giants without JPP the rest of the year? What's that mean for their defense?
Takes a significant step back in their pass rush. They've had a solid pass rush with their other pass rushes, but I think it takes them from if I'm rating by color grades, it takes them from maybe a close to a blue rated pass rush down to a green rated pass rush. That's blue being elite and green being like the next tier. I still think they can get that kind of pass rush, but he really is a difference maker for that defense in the pass rush. I think it's a big hindrance for their secondary.
Interesting game with Monday night. Monday night, you got Baltimore, New England. Big game for Baltimore.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Baltimore is first in the league in rush yards allowed. They're fifth in the league in yards per attempt. And Tom Brady, since Week 9, is 20th in vertical yards per attempt. Plus, he doesn't have Gronk. Bennett's banged up. I start looking at this going, I see a lot of paths to victory for Baltimore. If I'm New England, this is a very difficult game. I would not be surprised at all to see Baltimore win this.
Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. He's KC Joyner, ESPN.com. NFL Insider. He also covers the WWE for ESPN on WWE on ESPN. I'll get it right. There we go. And, of course, you told us about your article earlier in the week. Why don't you tell our Friday listeners a little bit about your latest WWE article?
It's a series we have called the Getting Over series. It looks at the psychological rules of pro wrestling. And this week's article said that a heel should use flawed logic. It talks about Bruno Sammartino turning his back on, or Valerio Zbyszko turning his back on Bruno Sammartino, how Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen justified the Omni attack on Dusty Rhodes where they quote-unquote broke his ankle, and talks about squash matches, too. And my visit to the Performance Center, a couple weeks ago, I visited the Performance Center and did an on-site at WWE's training center here in Central Florida, and it looks like I'll be penning that article to run sometime next week. It's going to have a lot of good content. It's a really fun time. It'll be something fans will want to read.
So I got to ask you then, are you an Ellsworth guy, or are you hating this?
Well, I like Ellsworth. I like doing. I like that turn. I think that the idea of the way he justified that turn, saying he could because he could get a title. I think I'm all for it. I think it's. He reminds me of one of the Mulkeys.
Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Casey, who wins, Philly or Washington?
I have to say Washington, just because I think they can get that vertical game going. Philadelphia's offense Washington has too many ways that they can score a lot of points. I have trouble seeing Philadelphia getting to 20 in this game.
All right, there you go. Casey Joyner right there on the Sports Bash. He likes Washington with a low-scoring Philadelphia day. You can listen to the game right here on 97.3. Enjoy the games. Have a great weekend, pal.
Same to you, man.